I was betrayed when family stole my $38,000 tuition to feed a spoiled sister's lifestyle, so I used their crimes against them and watched their world collapse. This happened about 3 years ago when I was 19, and people keep asking me to post the full story, so here it is. Fair warning, this gets pretty intense by the end, but the payoff is absolutely worth it. Some details have been changed for privacy, but the main events are exactly as they happened. I need to give you some background about my messed up family dynamics because it's crucial for understanding how this all went down. I'm Ryan, the older brother by 2 years. My sister is Brittany, and yeah, even her name screams basic princess. Since we were little kids, the family hierarchy was crystal clear. Brittany was the golden child who could literally do no wrong, and I was basically the family workhorse. While she was getting her nails done and going on shopping sprees with mom's credit card, I was working my tail off. I started a lawn care business when I was 12, got a job at a sporting goods store at 16, and by 18 I was working construction during summers and weekends while maintaining a 3.7 GPA. My parents owned a mid-sized landscaping company that was doing pretty well. Dad always talked about how someday the business would be ours, but it was obvious he meant Brittany's future husband would probably end up running it while I'd be expected to do all the actual work. Brittany was studying communications at the local community college, and I use the word studying very loosely. Her idea of hard work was deciding which filter to use on her Instagram posts. She drove a brand new Honda CR-5 that the family bought, but somehow only she ever drove it. Her closet looked like a department store had exploded in it. But here's what really got to me. While I was working my rear end off and saving every penny for my dream of going to State University's business program, she was blowing through money like it was Monopoly cash, designer bags, expensive makeup, weekend trips to the beach with her equally shallow friends, and my parents just enabled all of it. I remember one dinner that basically summed up my entire childhood. I was trying to tell them about this amazing internship opportunity at a regional bank that could set up my entire career, real business experience, good money, potential job offer after graduation, but the second Brittany walked in complaining about how her phone screen was cracked, all attention shifted to her crisis. "Daddy, I need a new phone like right now. This crack is so embarrassing," she whined, holding up a phone that had the tiniest hairline crack you could barely see. "Of course, princess. We'll get you the new iPhone tomorrow," Dad said immediately. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there like, "Hey, what about that internship I was telling you about?" "That's nice, son," Mom said dismissively. "You're so responsible. You'll figure it out." That phrase, "you'll figure it out," basically summed up my entire relationship with my parents. Brittany got handed everything, but I was expected to just figure it out on my own. The only people who seemed to give a darn about my goals were my dad's parents, Grandpa Joe and Grandma Ruth. They'd actually listen when I talked about business, helped me with my economics homework when I was struggling, and understood that I was working towards something bigger than just the family landscaping business. Grandpa Joe was old school, started with nothing, built a successful construction company from the ground up, sold it, and retired comfortably. He respected hard work and had zero patience for Brittany's princess act. "That girl's gonna be in for a rude awakening someday," he'd mutter whenever she threw one of her tantrums. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs earlier, but I was so focused on my own goals and just trying to keep my head down and work hard that I didn't notice how deep the family's financial problems actually went. By the time I turned 19, I had managed to save up close to $23,000 for my transfer to State University's business program. This was money from my construction job, the sporting goods store, some freelance landscaping work I did for neighbors, and even flipping motorcycles I'd find cheap and fix up. Every dollar was accounted for, and I was incredibly proud of what I'd accomplished. State University had always been the goal. Their business program is top-ranked in our region, and getting in there would basically guarantee me a shot at my dreams, starting my own company eventually, maybe in construction management or real estate development. I know it sounds boring to some people, but I'd been fascinated with business and entrepreneurship since I was a kid helping Grandpa Joe with his company books. The acceptance letter came in March. State University College of Business. Full acceptance for the fall semester. I literally yelled so loud that our neighbor's dog started barking. This was it, my ticket out of my family's drama and into the career I'd been working toward for years. But here's the thing about State University, even with in-state tuition, it's expensive. I'd done the math probably 100 times. With my savings, a part-time job, and some student loans, I could make it work. Barely, but I could make it work. That's when Grandpa Joe and Grandma Ruth dropped the bomb that changed everything. I was over at their house helping Grandpa fix his sprinkler system when Grandma came out with an envelope. "Ryan, Honey, your grandfather and I have been talking, she said with a little smile. We know how hard you've been working for this state university dream, Grandpa added, and we know college is expensive these days. I had no idea what was coming, but my heart started racing. Grandma handed me the envelope. We want to help make sure you can focus on your studies instead of worrying about money. Inside was a cashier's check for $15,000. $15,000. I swear I almost dropped it. Grandma, I can't take this. This is too much. Nonsense, Grandpa said firmly. We've been saving this money specifically for your education. Your grandmother and I never got to go to college, but we know you've got the brains and the work ethic to make something of yourself. I actually got choked up, which doesn't happen often. These two people believed in me more than my own parents ever had. With their gift plus my savings, I'd have enough to cover tuition, room and board, and even have a little cushion for emergencies. There's just one condition, Grandma said with a wink. You have to promise us you'll walk across that stage in 4 years. I promise, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. That weekend, I deposited the check into my education savings account and started making real plans. I researched dorms, looked into business clubs, even started reaching out to professors whose research looked interesting. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was actually going to make it. Of course, I should have known my family couldn't let me have one good thing without turning it into drama. When I told my parents about State University over dinner, their reaction was weird. That's great, honey, Mom said, but she didn't sound excited. Are you sure you can afford it, though? Yeah. With Grandpa and Grandma's help plus what I've saved, I'll be fine, I replied. Dad and Mom exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Well, we're proud of you, Dad said, but something in his tone felt off. Brittany, predictably, made it about herself. Ugh, State University is like so boring. I don't get why you want to be around all those uptight business majors. Because some of us want to actually build a career instead of just looking pretty, I shot back. Ryan, Mom scolded. Apologize to your sister. Classic. Brittany could insult my life goals, but I wasn't allowed to point out that she'd never worked a day in her life. I should have paid more attention to that weird look my parents shared. I should have wondered why they seemed more nervous than excited about my success, but I was too happy about finally achieving my goal to worry about their drama. Big mistake. The first sign something was seriously wrong came about a week before I was supposed to transfer my tuition money to State University. I went to check my account balance online just to make sure everything was in order, and I nearly had a heart attack. My education savings account, which should have had $38,247 in it, showed a balance of $2,891. I stared at the screen for probably 5 minutes, refreshing it over and over, thinking it had to be some kind of bank error. But the transactions were all there. Withdrawals of $2,000, $3,500, $1,800. Going back months. Someone had been systematically draining my account. I drove to the bank immediately, practically burning rubber getting there. The teller pulled up my account and confirmed my worst fears. All the withdrawals had been made with a debit card linked to the account. Since I was still technically a minor when I opened it, my parents were listed as joint account holders. Can you tell me who made these withdrawals? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. I'm sorry, sir, but it shows they were made with the secondary cardholder's access, the teller said apologetically. My parents had been stealing from me for months. I sat in my truck in that bank parking lot for probably an hour just trying to process what had happened. 4 years of working construction in 95-degree heat, weekends spent fixing motorcycles instead of hanging out with friends, skipping meals to save money, all of it gone. But I needed to be smart about this. I drove home and acted like nothing had happened, waiting for the right moment to confront them. That moment came that evening when I overheard them arguing in their bedroom. We can't keep doing this, David, Mom was saying. The business account is overdrawn, the credit cards are maxed, and the bank is calling about the house payment. I know, Dad replied. But what choice do we have? We can't let Brittany's mistakes ruin her future. Mistakes? What mistakes? Maybe we can take the rest from Ryan's account, Mom suggested. He won't need it all right away. The rest. They were planning to take what little was left. Good thing that boy's so responsible, Dad chuckled. He'll find a way to make it work. That's when I heard Brittany's voice join the conversation. Can you guys keep it down? I'm trying to FaceTime with Blake about our Miami trip next month. A Miami trip. While my parents were stealing my college money, Princess Brittany was planning another vacation. I had heard enough. I walked straight into their room without knocking. "We need to talk," I said, probably looking as mad as I felt. All three of them went silent, like kids caught with their hands in the cookie jar. "Ryan, honey, we were just—" Mom started. "Where's my money?" I interrupted. "Where's the $35,000 from my education account?" The silence in that room was deafening. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "Son, we had some unexpected expenses with the business. We borrowed some of your money, but we'll pay it back." "Borrowed?" I could feel my voice getting louder. "You stole it and you were just talking about taking the rest." "Don't you dare speak to your father that way," Mom snapped. Brittany was still lying on her bed, scrolling through her phone like this conversation didn't concern her at all. "God, you guys are so dramatic. It's just money. Just money." 4 years of my life savings was just money to her. "What mistakes?" I asked, remembering what Dad had said. "What mistakes of Brittany's are you covering up?" That's when the real truth started coming out. Apparently, my darling sister had racked up about $12,000 in credit card debt buying clothes, makeup, and funding her Instagram lifestyle. She'd also gotten multiple traffic citations that cost thousands in legal fees and fines. Oh, and she had totaled her previous car while texting and driving, and insurance didn't cover all of it because she was technically at fault. "So you stole my college money to pay for her shopping addiction and reckless driving?" I asked, incredulous. "We didn't steal anything," Dad said defensively. "It's family money, and family takes care of family." "I'm family too!" I shouted. "What about my future?" "You're smart. You'll figure something out," Mom said with a shrug. "Brittany needs more help right now." I looked at my sister, expecting her to at least look ashamed or apologetic. Instead, she just rolled her eyes. "Can you guys fight about this later? I'm trying to plan a vacation here." That was the moment I realized my family didn't see me as a son or a brother. They saw me as a resource to be exploited for Brittany's benefit. I was nothing more than a bank account with legs. "Fine," I said quietly. "But don't expect me to just forget about this." I walked out of that room knowing that my relationship with my parents would never be the same. But more importantly, I was already starting to plan my revenge. The next few days were honestly some of the darkest of my life. I had to call State University and explain that I needed to defer my enrollment for a semester due to family financial issues. The woman in the admissions office was sympathetic, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. I felt like my entire future had been stolen from me. But instead of wallowing in self-pity, I decided to get smart about this. If my family wanted to play dirty, I needed to understand exactly how dirty they were willing to get. My buddy Tyler from work had always been good with computers and internet research. His dad had been screwed over in a business deal a few years back, and Tyler had helped him gather evidence for their lawsuit. I figured if anyone could help me figure out what my family was really up to, it was him. "Dude, that's seriously messed up," Tyler said when I explained the situation. "You want me to see what I can dig up on your family's finances?" "Everything you can find," I told him. "I need to know exactly where my money went and what else they might be hiding." We spent the next 2 weeks meeting at the public library after work, using their computers to research public records, business filings, court documents, anything we could find. What we discovered was so much worse than I had imagined. First, we found out that Dad's business was in serious trouble. He owed back taxes, had defaulted on equipment loans, and was facing multiple contractor complaints with the state licensing board. Apparently, he'd been cutting corners on jobs and using cheap, substandard materials to save money. "Look at this," Tyler said, pulling up a court filing. "Your dad got sued by 3 different customers last year for faulty installations." But the real shocker came when we dug into Brittany's social media and cross-referenced it with financial records. This girl wasn't just irresponsible with money. She was basically committing fraud. We found evidence that she'd opened credit cards using my parents' business information. She'd also been running some kind of Instagram influencer scam where she was taking money from local businesses for sponsored posts but never actually posting them. One company had already filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. "Holy cow, Ryan," Tyler said, staring at his laptop screen. "Your sister isn't just spoiled, she's straight up criminal." The more we dug, the worse it got. Brittany had been shoplifting from department stores and had been caught at least twice. My parents had paid fines to keep her out of jail. She'd also been caught cheating on multiple exams at community college, and my parents had hired tutors and paid for grade appeals to keep her from getting expelled. "How did your parents afford to cover all this up?" Tyler asked. That's when we found the really damaging stuff. Dad had been embezzling money from his own business, creating fake invoices and inflating job costs to generate cash. He'd also taken out a second mortgage on the house without telling Mom and had borrowed against his life insurance policy. The family wasn't just broke. They were facing potential bankruptcy and criminal charges if anyone ever investigated their finances closely. This is insane, I muttered, looking at all the evidence we'd gathered. They're basically running a criminal enterprise, and they've been using my college money to fund it. Tyler leaned back in his chair. So, what are you going to do with all this? I'd been thinking about that question for days. I could go to the police, but that would probably just result in my entire family going to jail and me getting nothing back. I could confront them again, but they'd obviously just lie and make excuses like before. Or I could be strategic about it, use what I knew to my advantage. I'm going to play the long game, I told Tyler. Let them think they got away with it, and then hit them when they least expect it. I spent the next few weeks acting like everything was normal. I picked up extra shifts at work, started looking into community college options for the spring semester, basically played the role of the disappointed but resigned son who was accepting his fate. Meanwhile, I was quietly documenting everything. Every expensive purchase Brittany made, every lie my parents told about the business, every sign that they were still living beyond their means while I scraped together money for ramen noodles. The final piece of information I needed came from an unexpected source. Grandpa Joe called me one afternoon sounding worried. Ryan, have your parents asked you about our gift to you? About the $15,000? No. Why? Your father called yesterday asking if we could lend the family some money to help with business expenses. When I asked him why he didn't just have you contribute some of your college money, he told me you'd already spent most of it on pre-enrollment expenses. My blood started boiling. Not only had they stolen my money, but now they were lying to my grandparents about it. Grandpa, there's something I need to tell you about that money. After I explained everything to him, there was a long silence on the phone. Finally he spoke, and his voice was cold as ice. Those jerks stole from their own son. Ryan, what do you need from me to make this right? And that's when I knew I had all the allies and information I needed to destroy them. Grandpa Joe was mad in a way I'd never seen before. When I told him and Grandma Ruth the whole truth about what had happened to their gift and my savings, he went dead silent for about 2 minutes. Then he started making phone calls. I'm calling our attorney, he told me. What your parents did isn't just morally wrong. It's theft. We're going to make sure you get every penny back, plus damages. But I had a different idea. Grandpa, what if we could get them to confess everything on their own, make them so desperate that they come clean and beg for help? He raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind? Here's the thing about my family. They were all about appearances. Dad's business reputation, Mom's standing in her social circle, Brittany's Instagram image. Everything was about looking successful and put together, even when they were falling apart behind the scenes. So I decided to attack what they cared about most, their public image and their financial security. First, I started anonymously reporting Dad's business violations to the state licensing board and the IRS. Remember all those cut corners and fake invoices Tyler and I had found? I provided detailed documentation of everything, along with copies of the financial records showing where the stolen money had gone. Next, I contacted the companies that Brittany had scammed with her fake influencer posts. I provided them with evidence of what she'd done and suggested they might want to pursue legal action or at least report her to the relevant authorities. But the real masterstroke was what I did with the information about her academic dishonesty. Instead of going to the college directly, I made sure the information got to the right people through anonymous tips. Academic institutions take cheating very seriously, and they have their own ways of handling these situations. Within 2 weeks, the dominoes started falling. Dad got a letter from the state licensing board saying they were launching a formal investigation into his business practices. The IRS started asking questions about discrepancies in his tax filings. 2 of the companies Brittany had scammed filed complaints with the police for fraud, and then Brittany got called into the dean's office at her community college. Apparently, someone had anonymously reported her previous cheating incidents, and when they investigated, they found a pattern of academic dishonesty going back years. She got suspended, pending a full investigation. I watched all of this unfold while playing the perfect supportive son and brother. That's terrible that Dad's having business troubles. I'm sure Brittany's situation at school will work out. Is there anything I can do to help? Meanwhile, I was secretly documenting their increasing desperation. Dad started working longer hours trying to fix the business problems he thought were just bad luck. Mom started having emergency phone calls with attorneys and accountants. Brittany was having daily meltdowns about potentially getting expelled. The beautiful part was that they still had no idea I was behind any of it. They thought I was too focused on trying to scrape together money for community college to pay attention to their problems. Things really ramped up when Dad's biggest commercial client canceled their contract after hearing about the licensing board investigation. That was about $40,000 in annual revenue gone, just like that. "We're going to have to sell the house," I overheard Mom tell Dad one night. "There's no way we can make the mortgage payments with everything else falling apart." "What about Brittany's legal fees?" Dad asked. "The attorney wants another $5,000 retainer." "I don't know. Maybe we can ask your parents for help." That gave me an idea for the final phase of my plan. I called Grandpa Joe. "I think it's time for you and Grandma to have a little family meeting with my parents. But I want you to record everything they say." "What exactly do you want me to ask them?" "Ask them about the money they stole from me. Make them think you know everything and see if they'll confess. Tell them you might be willing to help financially, but only if they're completely honest about what's been going on." Grandpa Joe's voice got that cold edge again. "Oh, I'll get them to talk. Your grandmother and I have been carrying this family for years, and it's time for some truth." We set up the meeting for the following Sunday. Grandpa told my parents he wanted to discuss family finances and see how he could help with their recent difficulties. I made sure I had a really good reason to be out of the house that day. The last thing I wanted was to be around when this bomb went off. Sunday afternoon, I was working on a friend's car about 10 miles from home when Grandpa Joe texted me, "It's done. You're not going to believe what these idiots admitted to." He and Grandma had gone to my parents' house for what my parents thought was going to be a bailout conversation. Instead, it turned into a complete confession of everything they'd done. I drove to my grandparents' house as soon as I got the text. Grandpa had everything recorded on his phone. Apparently, he had told my parents he was recording for legal purposes to make sure any financial assistance was properly documented. They were so desperate for money that they agreed to it. "Just listen to this," Grandpa said, hitting play. The recording was even more damning than I'd hoped. Within the first 10 minutes, my parents had admitted to taking my college money, lying about it, and using it to cover Brittany's mistakes. But as the conversation went on, they revealed even more. Dad confessed to the embezzlement, the tax fraud, the fake invoices, everything. He was crying by the end, talking about how the business was going to fail and they might lose the house. Mom admitted to enabling Brittany's behavior for years because she was afraid of confronting her. She also revealed that they had been covering up Brittany's problems since high school, including multiple shoplifting arrests and academic cheating incidents that I hadn't even known about. But the most shocking part was when Brittany herself showed up halfway through the conversation. She was supposed to be at a friend's house, but apparently she'd been eavesdropping from the kitchen. "Are you guys seriously throwing me under the bus right now?" Her voice came through clearly on the recording. "Sweetheart, we're just trying to explain," Mom started. "Explain what? That you took Ryan's nerdy college money to pay for my stuff? So what? He would have just wasted it on boring business classes anyway." Even Grandpa Joe was speechless when he heard that part. The recording continued with Brittany basically confirming everything we'd suspected and more. She admitted to the credit card fraud, the influencer scams, even stealing money directly from Dad's business register. But she showed absolutely no remorse about any of it. "Ryan is such a loser anyway," her voice continued. "He'll probably just end up working at some random job somewhere. At least when I'm an influencer, I'll actually be making good money." That's when Dad apparently lost it and started yelling at her about how her influencer dreams had already cost them everything. Brittany started screaming back about how they'd always promised to take care of her and how it wasn't her fault, that Ryan was too stupid to notice his money was gone. The recording ended with Brittany storming out, Mom crying, and Dad begging Grandpa Joe to lend them money to fix everything. "What did you tell them?" I asked. Grandpa Joe smiled grimly. "I told them I'd think about it and get back to them. Then your grandmother and I came home and called our attorney." "What did the attorney say?" "He said we have enough evidence to pursue criminal charges and civil recovery for theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty." He handed me a legal document. "This is a restitution agreement. If they sign it, they agree to pay back every penny they stole from you, plus 18% annual interest, plus your actual damages from missing the state university semester. Total amount, $52,847. And if they don't sign it, then we file criminal charges and civil suits for everything we can think of. The attorney thinks we could probably get around $100,000 in damages, but it would take years and they'd probably go to jail. I thought about it for a moment. What's the timeline on the restitution agreement? They have to pay it back within 6 months, or the full criminal and civil complaints get filed automatically. And how exactly are they supposed to come up with $52,847 in 6 months when they're basically bankrupt? Grandpa Joe's smile got even wider. That's the beautiful part. They can't, which means in 6 months, they're going to be right back here begging us to help them, except by then they'll owe you even more money and we'll have them completely over a barrel. It was perfect. They'd have to admit their guilt, agree to pay me back, and then spend the next 6 months scrambling desperately to come up with money they didn't have, and when they inevitably failed, I'd have legal grounds to take everything. There's just one thing I want to add to this, I told Grandpa Joe. I want them to admit everything publicly, social media confession, apology to everyone they've wronged, the whole thing. You want to humiliate them? I want them to face the same consequences their actions deserve. They stole my future and showed no remorse. Time for them to learn what real consequences feel like. We called the attorney and added a public confession clause to the restitution agreement, sign it and apologize publicly, or face criminal charges immediately. Then we sat back and waited for my family to realize they had no choice but to accept our terms. The phone call came 3 days later. Dad, his voice shaking, asked if I could come over because they needed to discuss something important as a family. I knew exactly what this was about, but I played dumb. Sure, Dad, is everything okay? When I walked into the house, the whole family was sitting around the dining room table looking like they were attending their own funeral. Mom's eyes were red from crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past week, and Brittany was slumped in her chair with her arms crossed, pouting like the overgrown child she was. Ryan, Dad started, his voice barely above a whisper. We need to tell you something. For the next hour, I sat there and listened to them confess everything. Every stolen dollar, every lie, every time they'd chosen Brittany's wants over my needs. Dad broke down crying twice. Mom kept apologizing over and over, and Brittany just sat there rolling her eyes like this was all some big inconvenience for her. We know we messed up, Dad said finally, and we know saying sorry isn't enough. But your grandfather showed us this legal document, and we need your help. What kind of help? I asked innocently. We can't pay back the $52,847, Mom sobbed. Even if we sell everything we own, we can't come up with that much money in 6 months. We'll lose the house, Dad added. The business is already failing. We'll probably have to declare bankruptcy. And I'll go to jail, Brittany finally spoke up, her voice bitter, for the credit card stuff and everything else. They all looked at me expectantly, like I was supposed to swoop in and save them from the consequences of their own actions. So what exactly are you asking me to do? We're asking you to talk to your grandfather, Dad pleaded. Maybe convince him to give us more time or reduce the amount or something. We're begging you, Ryan, Mom added. We know we don't deserve it, but you're the only one who might be able to help us. Even Brittany, who'd never apologized for anything in her life, looked desperate. Look, I know I messed up, okay? I know I'm a mess, but I can't go to jail. I'm not built for that kind of life. I let the silence stretch out for a long moment, watching them squirm. You want me to help you? I said slowly. After you stole 4 years of my savings, after you lied to my face about it, after you told my grandparents I'd already spent their gift, after you cost me my spot at State University, you want me to help you? We know it's a lot to ask, Dad said quietly. It's everything to ask, I corrected him. You took everything from me, and now you want me to save you from the consequences. Brittany couldn't help herself. God, Ryan, stop being so dramatic. It's not like your life is ruined forever. You can still go to college eventually. The look I gave her could have melted steel. Shut up, Brittany. You don't get to talk right now. For once in her life, she actually did shut up. I stood up from the table. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign that restitution agreement. All of you. You're going to make the public confessions that are required. You're going to apologize to everyone you've wronged. And then you're going to figure out how to pay me back, because I'm not lifting a finger to help you. But Ryan, Mom started. No, I cut her off. For 19 years, I've been the responsible one. I've worked hard, saved money, stayed out of trouble, and put my family first. And what did it get me? You stole from me without a second thought. You chose Brittany's wants over my needs every single time. You made it clear that my dreams don't matter to this family. I started walking toward the door, then turned back. You know what the really beautiful part of this is? You could have just asked me for help. If you'd come to me honestly and explained that the family was in trouble, I probably would have contributed some of my college money willingly, but instead you stole it and lied about it. So now you get to face the full consequences of your choices. Please, Dad begged, actually getting up from his chair to follow me. We're your family. Family helps family. I stopped and looked him dead in the eye. You're right, Dad. Family should help family. Too bad you forgot that when you were stealing from your son to pay for your daughter's shopping sprees. Over the next few weeks, I watched my family's world completely fall apart, and I felt zero sympathy for any of them. They signed the restitution agreement because they had no choice. Dad had to shut down his business and declare bankruptcy. They put the house up for sale but couldn't find a buyer quickly enough. Mom had to get a job at a department store to bring in some income, and Brittany got expelled from community college and couldn't find any college that would accept her with a fraud charge on her record. The public confessions were probably the most satisfying part. Dad had to post on all his business social media accounts explaining why he was shutting down and apologizing to customers he'd cheated. Mom had to confess to her church group and social circle about the family's financial crimes. And Brittany had to post a full confession on her Instagram account admitting to the scams, the academic dishonesty, and the theft. Her follower count went from 15,000 to about 200 in a matter of days. But the real kicker came about 4 months into their 6-month deadline. They'd managed to scrape together about $18,000 by selling everything they owned, but they were nowhere close to the full amount. That's when they came crawling back to me, more desperate than ever. Ryan, please, Dad begged during what had become their weekly, please save us visits. We've sold everything. Mom's working double shifts. We're about to be homeless. You have to talk to your grandfather. We'll do anything, Mom added. We'll sign over any future inheritance. We'll work for you for free, whatever you want. Even Brittany had been humbled by this point. I'll get a job, she promised. I'll work at McDonald's or wherever. I'll pay you back myself if I have to. I looked at these 3 broken people who used to be my family and I realized something. My revenge was complete. They'd lost everything that mattered to them, their business, their house, their social standing, their pride. They were exactly where they'd put me, except worse because they'd done it to themselves. Actually, I said, there is something you can do. Their faces lit up with hope. You can finish paying me back exactly as agreed, face the criminal charges when you inevitably default, and learn what it's like to rebuild your life from nothing. Just like you forced me to do. The hope died in their eyes as they realized I wasn't going to save them. 6 months after signing the restitution agreement, they defaulted on the payment. Grandpa Joe's attorney filed all the criminal complaints we'd been holding back. Dad got 18 months in federal prison for the tax fraud and embezzlement. Brittany got 6 months in county jail plus 2 years probation for the fraud charges. Mom got probation and community service as a CO conspirator. I used the money I did get back from them, plus a settlement from their bankruptcy proceedings, to transfer to State University the following year. I'm now a senior in business administration with a 3.9 GPA and a job offer from a major consulting firm waiting for me after graduation. My grandparents and I have an amazing relationship. They're proud of how I handled the situation and have been incredible sources of support throughout college. As for my parents and Brittany, Dad gets out of prison next month and will be working at a gas station because no one will hire him for anything else with his criminal record. Mom is still working retail and living in a 1-bedroom apartment. Brittany finished her jail time and is working at a fast food restaurant trying to save money to go back to school. They've all reached out multiple times asking for forgiveness and a second chance at having a relationship. My response is always the same. I'll consider it when you've paid back the remaining $34,000 you still owe me, plus interest.